For 3,000 years, silence had filled the cosmos. Admiral Kexer gazed at the transparent crystal panels of his command ship, watching the infinite darkness beyond. The vessel breathed softly around him, its organic walls pulsing with a rhythm far older than most civilizations. Pride swelled in his chest as he considered everything his people had achieved. The Zeherian Empire commanded 17 planets, each one a brilliant gem in their collection of conquered territories. Their vessels glided to the void like elegant sea creatures, driven by systems that blended living tissue with machinery into something both gorgeous and lethal. Not one species had ever dared oppose them. Not one species had possessed the capability to challenge their might. Kexer pressed his slender crystalline fingers against the interface. The ship answered instantly, displaying updates from every corner of the Empire. Commerce flowed steadily among the central planets. The mining settlements harvested precious minerals exactly on time. Everything existed in perfect harmony throughout their controlled territories. A gentle tone caught his attention, signaling a fresh report. Reconnaissance vessels had discovered yet another backward civilization on the far edges of their domain. The world gleamed blue and green beneath a golden sun. Initial readings revealed industrial development, though nothing remarkable. Simply another young race toying with flames and basic metallurgy. Kexer summoned his deputy, Sub-Commander Nara. Take a modest squadron to examine this newfound planet. Follow standard procedures. Velnara inclined her graceful head. Should we ready ourselves for absorption or extermination? Absorption, assuming they demonstrate potential. These emerging civilizations occasionally prove useful as laborers. Kexer waved the issue aside dismissively. He'd witnessed countless primitive societies. They all ended the same way eventually. Across the immense gulf of space, Captain Jake Murphy faced an entirely different situation. He commanded the bridge of the USS Dakota, an enormous warship constructed in the manufacturing facilities orbiting Mars. The craft appeared harsh and functional, wrapped in heavy protective plating and covered with armaments. It resembled exactly what it was, a machine designed for combat. Captain, we're picking up unusual signals from far-range detectors, Lieutenant Amy Foster announced from her position. Something substantial is approaching the outer boundary of our system. Jake examined the readouts carefully. The signals were weak but unmistakable. Objects traveling faster than any natural phenomenon, following patterns that indicated deliberate control. After 15 years of readiness, it seemed first contact was actually occurring. Connect me to Admiral Rivers on the priority channel, Jake commanded, and prepare the defense systems, just to be cautious. The Earth Defense Force had stood ready for this occasion since humans first achieved light-speed travel. The planetary governments had drawn lessons from their own violent past. When humanity finally encountered alien life, they wouldn't be found unprepared. Admiral Kate Rivers received Jake's message aboard the USS Montana, the newest and most formidable ship in humanity's armada. The colossal battleship stretched 2 kilometers, equipped with magnetic accelerators capable of piercing mountains and energy weapons hot enough to liquefy iron. Surrounding her, 300 additional craft of different classifications prepared for humanity's initial encounter with another intelligent race. All vessels, this is Admiral Rivers, she transmitted across the network. We prepared 15 years for this occasion. Keep your training fresh in your minds. Expect friendship, but stay alert for conflict. Commander Lisa Santos verified her equipment aboard the USS Liberty, another of Earth's massive dreadnoughts. Her personnel were anxious but prepared. They'd all matured hearing tales about humanity's conflicts, about how their kind had nearly annihilated itself before finally discovering cooperation. Now they would learn whether that painfully earned knowledge would benefit them among the cosmos. The human armada assembled into position as the alien signatures intensified on their tracking systems. Earth's manufacturing centers had operated ceaselessly for years, producing ships and armaments based on wisdom gained from generations of human warfare. Every craft carried the dreams and anxieties of 8 billion souls who had never glimpsed an alien being. Meanwhile, Sub-Commander Velnara's reconnaissance squadron neared the peculiar star system with relaxed assurance. Her organic vessels were masterpieces, cultivated instead of assembled, formed through genetic manipulation, refined across thousands of years. The 5 ships moved in flawless unity, their transparent shells reflecting light from the nearby star. Primary analysis finished. Her detection specialist reported. The third world displays evidence of industrial society. Basic metal structures in orbital space. Elementary chemical propulsion. They seem to be in the beginning phases of space exploration. Velnara acknowledged. It matched her anticipations perfectly. Another juvenile species making its initial uncertain ventures beyond its native world. They would experience terror when witnessing the Zeherian ships, but that response was typical. Terror often preceded understanding. Ready the conventional assimilation procedures, she instructed. Start with display of our dominance, then extend them the opportunity to enter the Empire as subordinate civilization. Her communication specialist activated the language systems and started drafting the declaration that had succeeded on many other planets. The sequence remained consistent. Demonstrate overwhelming might, require obedience, then shepherd the fresh species into their appropriate role in the galactic structure. Neither armada completely grasped what awaited them. The Zeherians had never encountered a species matching their capabilities or defying their expansion. They controlled the galaxy so extensively that genuine resistance seemed inconceivable. The humans possessed no understanding they were approaching an empire that had seized star systems, while Earth still emerged from its previous ice age. They only recognized that alien craft were advancing toward their homeland, and they would protect it with all available resources. The scene was arranged for an encounter that would transform the galaxy permanently. 2 vastly different societies, each certain of their own power, advanced toward a clash neither could fully anticipate. The stars themselves appeared to pause as the gap between the armadas gradually narrowed. Sub-Commander Velnara observed the crude metal vessels grow larger on her displays. The human ships appeared rough and graceless to her perception, all severe edges and dense armor coating. They reminded her of ancient combat machines her people had discarded millennia ago when they learned to cultivate their vessels rather than construct them. How many craft are we tracking? She questioned her detection officer. Roughly 50 ships in the immediate vicinity. Sub-Commander, additional ones are arriving from deeper within the star system. Their largest craft appeared to measure approximately 2,000 meters in extent. Velnara felt mild surprise. Most backward species barely managed a few hundred meters for their biggest constructions. These beings showed greater capability than usual. Perhaps they would contribute useful value to the Empire eventually. Establish a transmission link, she directed. Apply conventional assimilation procedure. The declaration sent across the void had been developed by Zeherian negotiators through generations of victorious conquests. It was constructed to be straightforward and unmistakable, comprehensible even to the most primitive intellects. The language processor would manage any communication obstacles. Backward species of the Third World, the declaration started. You have been chosen for incorporation into the Zeherian Empire. Halt all combat preparations instantly and ready yourselves to welcome our delegates. Opposition will cause the total obliteration of your society. You possess 1 complete rotation of your planet to submit. Captain Jake Murphy stared at the translated message appearing on his monitor. Throughout the bridge of the USS Dakota, silence fell as the personnel processed the alien demand. The initial communication from another intelligent race in existence, and it constituted a command for capitulation. Sir, Lieutenant Amy Foster spoke softly. Are they genuinely threatening to eliminate our entire civilization? Jake confirmed grimly. That's exactly what it seems like. Contact Admiral Rivers right away. Aboard the USS Montana, Admiral Kate Rivers examined the alien declaration with increasing fury. She had wished for a peaceful interaction, but these beings apparently assumed humanity would simply surrender and embrace servitude. They had severely underestimated the species they confronted. All vessels, combat readiness. She transmitted to the Armada authorization to engage. If they desire battle, we'll provide them one they won't ever forget. The human Armada began spreading into battle configuration. Smaller combat ships and medium vessels moved to surrounding positions while the enormous Dreadnoughts established the central formation. Weapon hatches unsealed along hundreds of ships, exposing the armaments humanity had dedicated 15 years perfecting. Sub-Commander Velnara frowned as she witnessed the primitive craft begin positioning themselves. Their coordination was actually remarkably advanced, demonstrating a degree of strategic understanding she hadn't anticipated. Perhaps they required a more impressive illustration of Zeherian superiority. Lock onto their largest craft. She commanded, launch a cautionary discharge across their formation, not near enough to harm them, but near enough to demonstrate what our armaments can accomplish. The Zeherian organic vessels began illuminating as their living weapon mechanisms activated. Crystalline projectiles materialized in the biological chambers deep inside each ship, formed by genetic procedures that had been perfected across ages. The projectiles were stunning creations, transparent as precious stones and keen as blades, engineered to pierce through enemy hulls with surgical accuracy. 5 streams of crystal destruction shot across space toward the human armada. They were directed to pass just forward the largest human vessel, a cautionary discharge that would surely frighten the primitives into obedience. Captain Steve Collins observed from the bridge of the destroyer USS Phoenix as the alien weapons fire streaked toward Admiral Rivers' command ship. The projectiles traveled quickly but not beyond human sensor tracking capability. More significantly, they appeared to be a direct assault on the fleet commander. All armaments, commence firing, Collins declared. Defend the command ship. The standing directives were explicit. Any aggressive action against the fleet would be countered with instant and devastating retaliation. Collins didn't hesitate to initiate humanity's first interstellar conflict. The USS Phoenix unleashed everything in its arsenal. Magnetic accelerator rounds reaching tremendous velocities. Energy beams hot enough to vaporize metal. Nuclear-equipped missiles that could shatter asteroids. Other human vessels followed immediately, filling space with a tempest of lethal energy and projectiles. Velnara had precisely 3 seconds to comprehend her error before the human armaments reached her vessel. The cautionary discharges she'd launched were being perceived as a direct assault. The primitive species wasn't cowering in terror. They were retaliating with ferocity that contradicted all her assumptions. The initial accelerator rounds punctured through her organic ship's exterior, like it was constructed from tissue. The crystalline framework that had seemed so refined and resilient crumpled beneath the force of simple kinetic energy delivered at impossible velocities. Atmosphere escaped through countless breaches as her elegant vessel began dying around her. This can't be happening, she breathed as her ship's living mechanisms began failing. They're primitives. How can they damage us? The response arrived in the shape of an energy beam that severed her command ship in 2. The remaining 4 ships in her reconnaissance squadron survived only moments longer before they too were converted to glowing wreckage scattered across the emptiness. Admiral Kate Rivers observed the alien craft disintegrate with conflicted emotions. The immediate danger was eliminated, but this clearly represented just the start. These aliens had threatened to annihilate all humanity. They wouldn't accept this defeat peacefully. Secure the zone and initiate recovery procedures. She commanded, deploy our research teams to analyze the debris. We must discover everything possible about their capabilities. Captain Amy Foster supervised the aftermath from the USS Virginia, one of the newer super dreadnoughts that had arrived as backup. The alien vessels were different from anything human scientists had ever encountered. They seemed to be cultivated instead of assembled, utilizing some form of biological advancement completely foreign to human comprehension. Admiral, she communicated, we're picking up some kind of signal from the wreckage. It appears to be a distress transmission heading back toward alien territory. Rivers acknowledged grimly. The surviving aliens would know precisely what had transpired here. Humanity had just declared its presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic manner conceivable, by destroying the ships of what was obviously a far older and more sophisticated civilization. All vessels return to Earth at once. She ordered, we must prepare for whatever follows next. The initial engagement was finished, but both parties understood it was merely the start. Somewhere in the depths of the cosmos, the Zeherian Empire was discovering they were no longer alone in the galaxy, and they weren't going to respond well. The urgent transmission reached Admiral Kexer's command ship 3 days following the destruction of Elnara's reconnaissance squadron. He studied the message twice before the unbelievable information finally penetrated his consciousness. 5 Zeherian organic vessels obliterated, completely annihilated by primitives employing crude kinetic armaments. This cannot be correct, he told his transmission officer. Execute a complete verification of the message. Examine for data corruption or signal disruption. The officer worked frantically at his console for several minutes before looking up with terror in his expression. The transmission is authentic, Admiral. Our vessels were destroyed by the primitive species. All personnel perished. Kexer experienced something he had never felt before in his 300 years of existence. For the first occasion in Zeherian chronicles, their ships had been defeated in combat, not damaged or neutralized, but utterly destroyed by a species they had dismissed as barely sentient. Dispatch orders to all squadron leaders, he commanded, his voice frigid with anger. I want every available ship gathered for immediate deployment. We will demonstrate to these beings what occurs when they dare to oppose the Empire. The largest armada in Zeherian history began gathering at the border of their territory. Over 1,000 organic vessels of every classification, from small reconnaissance craft to enormous battle cruisers capable of destroying entire worlds. The honor of the Empire required nothing less than the complete elimination of the species that had dared to shed Zeherian blood. Meanwhile, Earth was readying for conflict with a frantic effectiveness that had sustained humanity through its bleakest periods. General Paul Martinez occupied the command facility buried deep under the Rocky Mountains, monitoring status updates flowing in from throughout the solar system. How many vessels do we have operational? He asked his assistant. 1,200 craft of all types, General. The Mars manufacturing facilities are operating continuously to complete the ships still under production, but we require at least another month. Martinez acknowledged grimly. The intelligence specialists had been examining the debris of the alien reconnaissance vessels, and what they had discovered was both captivating and frightening. The aliens possessed capabilities that were millennia beyond humanity in certain areas, but they had evidently never developed the kind of heavy armaments that humans considered standard. What about the protective installations? Deployment is advancing on schedule. We should have the asteroid belt completely weaponized within 2 weeks. The strategy was straightforward, but desperate. Earth's complete industrial capability had been transformed to military production. Automated manufacturing plants throughout the solar system were generating weapons, ammunition, and defensive mechanisms at a pace that would have been unthinkable for any earlier generation of humans to conceive. Captain Amy Foster observed the construction operations from the bridge of the USS Virginia, one of the newest super dreadnoughts to emerge from the Martian facilities. The massive craft exceeded 2 kilometers in length and carried enough destructive power to devastate a small nation. Around her, dozens of similar vessels were performing final preparation drills before the alien armada arrived. Captain, her weapons specialist reported, we're detecting activity at the boundary of sensor coverage. Something enormous is approaching. Foster felt her pulse quicken. Long-distance sensors had been monitoring the advancing alien armada for days, but this marked the first time they had registered on short-range detection. The adversary was finally here. Alert the fleet, she commanded. All vessels to combat readiness. This is it. Admiral Kate Rivers received the notification aboard the USS Montana as the human armada moved into protective formation around Earth's moon. The strategy was to utilize Luna's gravitational influence as a tactical benefit, compelling the aliens to approach through carefully arranged kill zones where human armaments would achieve maximum effectiveness. How many vessels are we facing? She asked her sensor specialist. Still calculating. Admiral. At least 800 confirmed contacts. Possibly more. They're maintaining flawless formation at extended range. Rivers felt a chill travel down her back. 800 ships against humanity's 500. The numbers were unfavorable, but not hopeless. Earth's armaments had proven successful against alien capabilities, and human strategies were built around engaging superior forces. All vessels, ready to execute Plan Delta, she transmitted to the fleet. Remember, we're not simply defending Earth. We're defending the survival of our species. The alien armada dropped out of light speed travel in a display that would have frightened any other race in the galaxy. Over 1,000 organic vessels materialized simultaneously, their crystalline exteriors gleaming in Earth's solar light. They advance in perfect coordination like an enormous school of predatory sea creatures closing on their target. Admiral Kexer occupied the bridge of his command ship, observing the crude human craft scrambling into protective positions. The primitives had managed to eliminate one small reconnaissance squadron through fortune and deception, but now they confronted the complete might of the Zeherian Empire. Commence the assault, he ordered. I want every vessel destroyed, and every world in this system reduced to ashes. These beings will become an example to any other species that might contemplate resistance. The organic vessels began accelerating toward Earth, their living weapon mechanisms charging for the engagement that would decide humanity's fate. Behind them, the vast emptiness of space seemed to pause as two civilizations readied themselves to struggle for the privilege to survive. Captain Steve Collins observed the approaching invasion force from the bridge of the USS Phoenix, one of the destroyers positioned in the outer defensive ring. The alien ships were beautiful in their own fashion, but he felt no appreciation for their elegant construction. They had arrived to annihilate his homeland, and he would perish before permitting that outcome. All armaments repaired. Captain, his tactical specialist, reported. Collins acknowledged, his hand positioned on the firing mechanisms. Around him, the personnel of the Phoenix readied themselves to confront impossible circumstances with the same bravery that had sustained humanity through countless conflicts against their own kind. They were outnumbered and outmatched, but they were defending their families, their planet, and their species. The Battle of Luna was about to commence. The Battle of Luna opened with a spectacle that had never occurred before in the galaxy. Over 1,000 alien organic vessels swept toward Earth in flawless formation, their crystalline exteriors catching the sunlight like a swarm of lethal jewels. Admiral Kexer observed from his command ship as the primitive human craft appeared to withdraw toward their home planet. They are fleeing, he said with contentment. As anticipated, no species has ever withstood the complete power of the Empire. His tactical specialist acknowledged eagerly. Should we pursue them into the gravitational field, Admiral? We can finish this rapidly. Kexer smiled coldly. Yes, follow them to their world. I want to witness the terror in their expressions when they comprehend how futile their situation truly is. The Zeherian Armada accelerated toward Earth, lured deeper into the solar system by what seemed to be a panicked human withdrawal. The organic vessels moved like living creatures through space, their crystalline frameworks responding to their pilots' thoughts with fluid elegance. Aboard the USS Montana, Admiral Kate Rivers observed the alien armada taking the bait. The human retreat was precisely calculated, intended to draw the enemy into the trap that Earth scientists had dedicated weeks constructing. Hidden throughout the asteroid belt, automated weapon installations waited in darkness for their moment to act. Distance to activation coordinates, she asked her tactical specialist. 60,000 kilometers and decreasing, Admiral. All installations are armed and standing by. Rivers felt her heart racing as the enemy armada approached the invisible boundary. That would activate humanity's desperate strategy. The aliens possessed superior numbers and capabilities, but they had never encountered an opponent who comprehended the genuine meaning of absolute warfare. All vessels, ready for Operation Sledgehammer, she transmitted to the human fleet. Remember, we only have one opportunity at this. The moment arrived when the leading alien vessels crossed into the asteroid belt. Suddenly, the space surrounding them erupted in flames as hundreds of concealed weapon installations activated simultaneously. Accelerator rounds and energy beams shot out from hidden positions among the asteroids, catching the Zeherian Armada in a devastating crossfire. Admiral Kexer observed in disbelief as his beautiful vessels began dying around him. The asteroids themselves were armed, transforming the entire belt into one enormous weapon mechanism. Organic ships that had controlled the galaxy for ages were torn apart by simple kinetic projectiles fired from concealed positions. How is this possible? He screamed. How did they weaponize an entire asteroid field? His communication specialist was desperately attempting to organize a response, but the human trap was too well designed. Every time the Zeherian vessels tried to maneuver away from one group of installations, they exposed themselves to fire from another direction. Captain Steve Collins led a squadron of destroyers in a flanking assault, using the confusion generated by the asteroid installations to attack the alien fleet's vulnerable rear. The USS Phoenix and her companion ships emerged from behind Luna like wolves assaulting a scattered herd. All armaments. Sustain fire, Collins commanded. Don't allow them time to reorganize. The human destroyers unleashed everything they possessed, weapons designed for the kind of close-range battle that had dominated Earth's naval engagements for generations. The aliens had never faced such brutal, direct tactics, and their refined formations began collapsing under the onslaught. Captain Amy Foster brought the USS Virginia into the center of the engagement, her super dreadnoughts enormous guns targeting the largest alien craft. The ship's primary battery could launch projectiles the size of small structures, and each discharge tore through enemy hulls like they were constructed from tissue. Target their command ship, she ordered. Let's eliminate their leadership. The Virginia's guns rotated toward Admiral Kexer's organic vessel, the enormous craft that functioned as a coordination center for the entire alien armada. The initial volley missed, but the second found its target, puncturing through the crystalline exterior and into the ship's vital systems. Kexer felt his command ship dying around him as human armaments tore through its living framework. The organic vessel's suffering echoed in his consciousness through the neural connection that linked all Zeherian craft to their personnel. For the first time in his extended life, he understood what it meant to be genuinely afraid. All vessels withdraw, he commanded desperately. Retreat to light speed travel. But the human trap was finished. As the surviving alien vessels attempted to escape, they discovered their path obstructed by fresh human reinforcements arriving from the outer planets. The Mars facilities had been operating without pause, and Admiral Rivers had scheduled their arrival flawlessly. Captain Jake Murphy led the reinforcement armada aboard the USS Dakota, his battle cruiser accompanied by dozens of freshly produced warships. The new human craft fell upon the withdrawing aliens like hungry predators, their weapon mechanisms still warm from the manufacturing floors. No survivors, Murphy transmitted to his fleet. These things arrived here to annihilate our world. We guarantee they never receive the opportunity to attempt again. The destruction that followed would be remembered as one of the most conclusive battles in Galactic Chronicles. The Zeherian Empire's greatest armada was torn apart section by section, their refined organic vessels reduced to glowing wreckage that would drift through the solar system for generations to come. Admiral Kexer's command ship was among the final to perish. As human energy beams finally breached his ship's core, the proud alien leader had just enough time to send a final transmission to his homeworlds. The message was short and filled with disbelief. The primitives have triumphed. He whispered into his transmitter. The Empire is finished. The transmission would reach Zeherian territory 3 days later, carrying news that would devastate a civilization that had believed itself unbeatable. In the duration of a few hours, humanity had destroyed the largest armada in Alien Chronicles and proven that the galaxy had a new ruling species. As the final alien vessel exploded in the cold vacuum of space, Admiral Kate Rivers permitted herself a moment of fulfillment. Earth was protected, but she recognized this victory was merely the opening. The galaxy was immense, and humanity had created adversaries of every species that had served the Zeherian Empire. The genuine conflict was just commencing. 6 months following the Battle of Luna, Captain Jake Murphy occupied the observation platform of the USS Dakota as it patrolled the former Zeherian commerce routes. The space that had once been filled with refined alien organic vessels now hosted the angular shapes of human craft, their exteriors marked from combat but victorious. The Zeherian Empire had collapsed entirely after information of their armada's destruction circulated across the galaxy. Without their military strength to maintain control, the 17 central worlds had descended into disorder. Some had surrendered immediately to advancing human forces, while others had simply gone silent, their populations escaping into the Outer Rim territories. Captain Lieutenant Amy Foster communicated from the transmission station. We're receiving a surrender proposal from a Zeherian settlement on Kepler 442b. They're requesting protection from local resistance groups. Murphy acknowledged grimly. It was the identical situation on dozens of planets. The alien empire had governed through intimidation and superior capabilities. But when that technology proved ineffective against human armaments, their entire civilization had crumbled like a structure built on sand. Accept their surrender and send a peacekeeping detachment, He commanded, "Make it evident that we're not here as invaders. We're here to restore stability." Admiral Lisa Santos reviewed similar communications from her command ship, the USS Liberty, now the leadership vessel for what had become known as the Terran Federation fleet. The enormous super Dreadnought orbited a former Zeherian planet where human engineers were assisting local populations rebuild their systems. The collapse of the Empire had exposed the genuine scale of Zeherian oppression. For 3,000 years, they had enslaved dozens of species across hundreds of planets, utilizing their advanced capabilities to crush any attempt at rebellion. Now, with their rulers gone, these enslaved peoples were experiencing freedom for the first time in ages. "Admiral," her assistant communicated, "the Kronar delegation has agreed to enter the Federation. They're proposing to share their mining capabilities in exchange for military protection." Santos smiled. The Kronar were a reptilian species that had been compelled to labor in Zeherian crystal mines for over 2,000 years. Their understanding of alien capabilities was proving invaluable as humanity attempted to comprehend the vast empire they had inherited. "Excellent. What about the Vexti?" "Still uncertain. They're thankful for their liberation, but they're not confident they want to accept human leadership. Can't say I blame them." The Vexti were an insectoid species with highly developed mathematical capabilities. They had been utilized by the Zeherians as living computers, forced to compute light-speed routes and manage commerce logistics. After so many generations of servitude, it was comprehensible that they would be suspicious of any new authority. General Paul Martinez confronted similar challenges from his headquarters on Earth, now functioning as the first Galactic Defense Coordinator. The designation still felt unusual to him, but someone had to manage the transition from a human solar system to a galactic civilization encompassing hundreds of planets. Status communication on the Settlement Establishment Program. He requested from his personnel, advancing ahead of projections, "General, we have operational settlements on 47 former Zeherian planets, with more being established every week. The greatest challenge is locating enough qualified administrators." Martinez chuckled despite himself. Humanity had transformed from a single-world species to controllers of the Galactic Empire in less than a year. The adaptation curve was steep, but humans had always excelled at adjusting to impossible circumstances. The industrial capability that had secured the conflict was now being transformed to peaceful objectives. The same facilities that had manufactured Dreadnoughts were now constructing exploration craft and settlement ships. The plants that had produced armaments were generating construction machinery and agricultural equipment. Captain Amy Foster commanded one of the new exploration craft, the USS Discovery, as it charted systems that had been restricted during Zeherian control. Her assignment was to establish contact with species that had hidden from the Empire for generations, proposing them the opportunity to enter the growing Federation. "Captain, we're picking up artificial structures in the approaching system," her science specialist communicated. "Appears to be a space station of unknown construction." Foster experienced the familiar excitement of discovery that had propelled humanity to the stars. Every system they explored revealed new marvels, new species with their own distinctive capabilities and societies. The galaxy was far more varied and fascinating than the Zeherians had ever permitted anyone to realize. "Approach slowly," she commanded. "Complete diplomatic procedures. Let's discover who our new neighbors are." The space station belonged to a species called the Quillen, a race of energy beings who had been hiding in the outer rim for over 1,000 years. When Zeherian reconnaissance had first located their world, the Quillen had utilized their mastery of electromagnetic fields to make their entire solar system seem empty and barren. "You are the humans," the Quillen ambassador said when contact was finally established. "We have learned of your victory over the crystal tyrants. Many species discuss you with optimism." Foster smiled as she comprehended how extensively the galaxy had transformed. Species that had existed in terror for ages were now emerging from concealment, eager to participate in a new galactic community based on partnership rather than domination. Back on Earth, children who had been born during the conflict were now taking their first steps. They would mature in a galaxy where humanity was not isolated, where the stars contained companions as well as mysteries. The generation that had battled the Zeherians had secured not just Earth's liberty, but the liberty of countless other planets. Admiral Kate Rivers, now retired from active command, often occupied her garden and gazed up at the night sky. The stars no longer appeared cold and remote. They were filled with human vessels and human settlements, with alien partners and new companions. Humanity had learned to extend beyond their own world without losing what made them human. The galaxy that had once trembled under Zeherian control now looked to Earth for direction, not because humans were the strongest or most sophisticated species, but because they had proven something that no other civilization had achieved in 3,000 years. They had demonstrated that partnership could overcome oppression, that variety was more powerful than uniformity. The age of human expansion had commenced, and the stars themselves seemed more brilliant for it.